Like every other Indian who lands in Bangkok, the first thing that caught my attention was the name of the airport. And I was like, Suvarna Bhumi? Why does that sound so familiar? A quick Google search made me realize that Thais actually use a lot of Sanskrit in daily life. And I was really happy and proud to see my language, my culture being respected and followed by millions of non-Indians outside of India. I was really excited to know whether I'd be able to understand a little bit of Thai and perhaps be able to communicate with the locals. But the moment I stepped out of the airport, I realized how alien the language actually sounded. Whatever happened to Sanskrit and Pali I was looking for. Now, as I was about to give up on the language, I started noticing this Indianness all around me in terms of the religion, the culture, and yes, the language. So I thought to myself, what in the world's going on here? Is Thai really similar to Sanskrit? If not, how difficult is it for an Indian to actually learn Thai? Sit back and relax, because I'll answer all your questions today. In this video, we're going to be looking at three most important aspects of learning any language. Number one, the script and the pronunciation. Number two, the grammar. And number three, the vocab. Let's start with the script first. Here we'll be comparing Thai and Hindi, as this is the most spoken language in India and a lot of people would be able to relate to this. So both Thai and Hindi are abhagidas, which means the base consonants could be modified by vowels, which could appear in the front, below, above, or all around a consonant. If you just looked at the appearance of the base consonants or the placement of the vowels, they look kind of identical as well. So this should mean that Thai script is pretty easy for Indians to get a hang of, right? Well, before you start jumping to conclusions, you need to face this monster called pronunciation. In order to understand Thai pronunciation, we need to look at Thai vowel sounds, Thai consonant sounds, and Thai tones. Let's look at the vowels first. Thai has a rich set of 32 distinct vowel sounds. Modern spoken Hindi, on the other hand, has only about 12. While these languages do share some common features like the long and short vowels of e, and u, practically speaking, Indians do not distinguish between these. Nobody would say, "Main Delhi ja raha hu." It's always "Main Delhi ja raha hu." While that is definitely not the case with Thai. Long and short are completely distinct entities. In fact, Thai takes this long and shortness to a whole new level, in the sense that the vowels that exist singularly in Hindi do have long and short equivalents in Thai. Let's look at the A vowel and try and understand the length of the vowels here. Thai short vowel is pronounced A, and Thai long vowel is pronounced A. If you try and compare the Indian A sound, it lies somewhere in between these. And it's important to understand that the short A is not the Indian sound. This is a classic Thai error that makes Thai pronunciation of Sanskrit words sound kind of weird. So what should have been Vahana is pronounced Pahana with a short A sound. This applies to English as well. What should have been fashion with the English schwa sound is pronounced fashion with a short A sound. Let's try and look at the complete picture here. A, These are in fact 6 distinct sounds. Well, we are not done yet. In addition to this, Thai has a lot of vowels that simply do not exist in Hindi. Let's focus on the ear and the I vowel. So what should have been Chiang Mai with the ear vowel becomes Chiangamai in Hindi. Or what should have been Thai with the I vowel becomes Thai in Hindi. So having known all of this, it's safe to say that Thai vowels would definitely fall into the hard category for Indians. Let's take a look at the Thai consonant sounds now. Thai has about 44 consonants, but only about 21 consonant sounds. modern spoken Hindi, thanks to the Persian influence, has more than 30. So almost all of the Thai consonant sounds could be more or less appropriately represented by a few of the Indian sounds. However, it's extremely important to understand and not use any of these retroflex sounds. These consonant sounds produced from the top of the mouth are a characteristic feature of Indian languages, almost exclusive to the Indian subcontinent. Outside of this, people simply cannot make sense of what this Indian ta actually is. And believe me, as an Indian, it's extremely difficult to get rid of this sound because this is how we normally speak. Another important thing to remember about Thai consonants is that they change their sounds with position. Thai words can only end in a few specific consonant sounds, that is, the k, the, na, pa, ma, and ng sounds, with all of these sound conversions taking place. So this makes the Thai language a lot less phonetic than Hindi. That is, what you see is not actually what you read, which can be a major problem for some people. Hence, Thai consonant sounds should be rated at a medium difficulty level for Indians. Now let's try and focus our attention to the third and the most important part of Thai pronunciation, that is Thai tones. Thai is a tonal language. For the people who just don't know what it means, here it's not just important what you say, it's also important how you say it. Thai has 5 tones. So the same word my can have more than 5 different meanings depending on the tone and the context. My, 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 my. This is going to be the biggest challenge that an Indian would face as far as Thai pronunciation is concerned. So why is it so difficult for Indians? For the simple reason, none of the languages in mainland India, including English, if you would call that an Indian language, are tonal. Take Hindi for instance. Ma would not mean anything else in Hindi, but these are 3 distinct words in Thai with 3 distinct meanings. The closest Indian analogy to this would be the 4 Indian D sounds. Dal, 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 dal. Although similar, they are pretty intuitive to an Indian. But if you ask a foreigner, they all sound the same. So how important are the tones? As important as the distinction between the Indian D and T sounds. So unless you get your tones right, you are not going to sound fluent in Thai. Hence, Thai tones should definitely be put at a hard difficulty level for Indians. Now, let's try and put everything together as far as script and pronunciation is concerned, looking at how you would read Sanskrit in Thai. So what should have been Mahanagara becomes Mahanakhon, or what should have been Maharashtra becomes Maharat. Let's talk a little bit about Thai grammar now. Vaiyakon or Vyakarana in Sanskrit. Thai follows a subject-verb-object kind of sentence structure similar to English. So in a lot of cases, you could just replace it word by word to form sentences in Thai. I love you. Phom rak kun. Hindi, on the other hand, follows a subject-object-verb kind of sentence structure. Main tumse pyar karti hoon. As you can observe here, it's a lot easier to translate sentences from English to Thai as compared to Hindi. Thai, like English, does not have grammatical gender. So a good car or a good house would be Rot thi di or Ban thi di. Whereas in Hindi it would be Kar achhi hai or Ghar acha hai. This presence of grammatical genders makes Hindi a lot more complex for English speakers. There are other aspects of Thai grammar that are distinct from English or Hindi, like Thai classifiers or the use of pronouns, the details of which are out of the scope of this video. Long story short, the point that I'm trying to make here is Thai grammar could be a lot easier to deal with if you have a decent understanding of English. And I'm sure as a Gen Z or a Gen Y Indian watching this, you are comfortable with English. So Thai grammar would be at a medium difficulty level for Indians. Number 3, vocab. This so far is going to be the single biggest advantage that an Indian has over a Westerner. 60% of Thai loanwords come from Sanskrit and Pali, and a lot of these are actually used in day-to-day life in Thailand. Most of the foreigners learning Thai get complacent and lazy when it comes to Thai spellings, as they simply cannot get their head around these duplicate letters. Why should a single consonant sound have 7 equivalents? Well, as an Indian, you know for a fact that these are not the same sounds, that these are 7 distinct sounds. And so are these. So it's pretty intuitive for you to understand why Ghoshana should be written this way and not this way, or why Dhanagar should be written like this and not like this. So knowing Sanskrit and Pali definitely gives you an edge over other foreigners when it comes to vocab, but this is only going to take you so far, as Thai is a vast ocean and it's easy to get lost in it without the help of these navigators. So Thai should definitely be put at a medium difficulty level for Indians. Now let's try to put together everything that we had seen so far. So although Thai script is pretty easy to understand, pronunciation could be a major problem for Indians. Depending on the level of your English, dealing with Thai grammar would be of medium difficulty level, and so would be remembering the vocab. So if Thai is at an 8 on 10 difficulty level for Westerners, it's definitely not less than 7 on 10 for Indians. You need to understand this. Thai is not a simple extension of Sanskrit like other Indian languages. It has its own uniqueness and its own beauty that makes it really special. So unless you put up real effort, as an Indian, your accent would sound relatively better as compared to other foreigners, but it's not going to be even close to how a Thai would actually speak. So what are you waiting for? Go out there, start learning Thai.